everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here today to film a recent reads video. But before I get started on my recent reads, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you to all of my new subscribers who have pushed me over the edge to have over 3,000 subscribers. This was such a surprise this month to see all of a sudden my subscriber numbers start ticking up. And over the course of the last few weeks, I have gone over 3,000 subscribers. Now, I have been on BookTube for about 6 years. I think my anniversary is coming up in March or April. I'm not for sure exactly when. My goal is not to have any certain number of subscribers. I just like talking to folks about books, and I don't really have an opportunity to do that about the depth and the breadth of the things that I like to read about. And so that's why I started the BookTube channel. And so it's really exciting to have reached this milestone and to have all of you here with me and have interest in what I talk about, which is, all kinds of different books. So thank you all, and welcome for those of you who are new, and thank you for sticking around, those of you who have been around for a long time. I really appreciate all of you, and I appreciate the time that you spend watching my videos, so thank you. And as a thank you, it is customary around these here parts to do a Q&A when you reach certain subscriber milestones. And I've never done a question and answer thing on my channel, so I thought, why not? Let's do it. So please leave your questions, if you have any, down in the comments below. And I'll answer some questions. So let's do it. And I'll tell you if there's something that has been asked that I can't answer. So we'll just go from there. Please do leave questions, any topics. They don't have to be about reading necessarily. They could be about other things too. So yeah, love to hear your questions in the comments down below. So let's talk about what books I have read in the month of January that I have not yet talked about. I did review 3 books on my last vlog video, so I won't talk about those. So the first book that I completed in January that I have not yet talked about is Gift from the Sea by Morrow Lindberg. This is the 50th anniversary edition, and it has this really gorgeous gilt silver embossed title on it, which makes it hard for you to see, but is really gorgeous in real life. And this book is, I would call it a modern classic. It's a nonfiction. It's Morrow Lindberg's meditations on life as a middle-aged woman. So she talks about relationships, whether that's marriage type relationships or friends relationships or relationships with your children. She talks about women and their roles in society, and women basically going after what they want in life and embracing the things that they're interested in, pursuing their creative desires. This is really, to me, this is what I wanted A Room of Her Own by Virginia Woolf to be. This is really a discussion in language that anybody can understand about, what it's like to be a woman. Now, part of it is dated, I would say, and maybe not as relevant because she was writing this 50 years ago, and times are changed, times are different, but also, I would say some of this is timeless. So Morrow Lindberg was the wife of Charles Lindberg, and she, so she had a very, she had social structures that she was expected to conform to and to meet. But yes, she also had her own personal goals and desires. She was a writer. She was very interested in creative pursuits. She had this family, that she was responsible for, and how to balance, her desire to produce creative things and also have this family and also meet her social obligations. She had to balance all that out. So, work-life balance. We're all struggling with that. And I thought this was really well done. This book was a gift from my buddy reader friend, Rachel, and I am so pleased to have this one in my collection. And I will be rereading this probably several times, but maybe even once a year, because I think that the lessons in this book bear revisiting from time to time. So highly recommend. The next thing I completed was an audiobook, and that was Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. It's the first book in a grimdark fantasy series called the Ancestor Trilogy, I believe. And in this book, we're following a character named Nona she's a very young child in the beginning of the book, and she is purchased from her village by basically a man who would go around and buy up unwanted children who might potentially have skill sets that other people might be interested in. And Nona is purchased in this way and taken away from her village and her family, and ends up in a situation where she commits murder, or is thought to have committed murder, and gets taken to jail and is going to be hung. She is rescued from this hanging by a abbess from a local nunnery, or convent, I should say, and taken to this convent. And it turns out the convent is a training school for magical assassin nuns. And Nona herself has magical powers. And so it thus begins the beginning of a fantasy series about, Nona finding her tribe, basically finding her family, her companions, and discovering her powers and how this world really works. I thought that the book was very uneven in its pacing. The whole middle part of the book was quite dull and repetitive. The beginning part and the end parts were more exciting and interesting. But even still, I felt that the plot really was dragged out. There was a lot of training montage type scenes that just felt very repetitive. I did like Nona as a character, but she was the type of character which I really despise in fantasy, where she knew things but kept them to herself. She was a very self-contained type of a person, did not trust easily, and so she knew things, but she kept those things to herself that maybe if she had told someone, other things might have happened. So that's a frustration for me in these types of books. And it just wasn't compelling enough. I was buddy reading this with Doris from All the Books, and neither one of us felt compelled enough by what had happened in the initial book to continue on the series. So we're just going to let that one go. I then finished another nonfiction, and that was The Woman They Could Not Silence by Kate Moore. The subtitle is The Shocking Story of a Woman Who Dared to Fight Back. This takes place in the mid-1800s during basically Civil War period, where Elizabeth, the titular character, the woman who couldn't be silenced, is put into an insane asylum by her husband because her views on religion differ from his, and she is not afraid to speak her mind and say that she disagrees with him. And he finds this so hateful that he takes her away from her 6 children and stuffs her in an insane asylum. And then she remains in that asylum for 3 years. And in that time period, the superintendent of the asylum basically gaslights her. And she observes all these horrible treatment of women, and she becomes a person that stands up for her sisters in this environment, and is determined not to let this situation that she finds herself in drive her into misery and basically despair. And so she fights back, and she just documents what she's going through and is determined that she's going to bring these folks to justice. And thus begins a lifelong battle to bring equal rights for women to the forefront. And it was such a brilliantly written book. I buddy read this with Patrice and Rachel, and we all agreed this was a 5-star read. It is very, very readable. It's written in such an engaging way. The chapters are short, and they end on events that make you want to keep reading. The things that Elizabeth is forced to endure, both from her husband and from the superintendent of the asylum and from wider society and what women were expected to endure at this time period, it's so enraging and so upsetting, but also watching this woman who just never gave up. She never gave up. She was so inspiring. She did things that I didn't agree with, but she never stopped fighting for what she thought was right. She was very principled, and, the things that she believed in, the values that she believed in, she was not afraid to give up her own personal desires to fight for those things and to fight for others and to try to help others. She was an amazing person. And I think this is a really interesting historical event that happened. Elizabeth ends up fighting for and seeing several laws get passed and changed in order to support women and to protect their rights. And I just don't think we know enough about this stuff. We're not taught about it in our history classes in school. And so it's left to us as individuals to find out about it through reading books like this. Well, I can highly recommend this book. I've read Kate Moore's earlier nonfiction book, Radium Girls, which was very good as well. And this one is excellent. So Kate Moore is just a fantastic author, and I love how she highlights the trials and tribulations that women went through and how they fought back against society and the rules and how society is set up in order to provide better safety and more rights for women. So very, very well done. Very highly recommended. The woman they could not silence. And then last but not least, I finished a reread of a science fiction book. This is Ghost Ship by Sharon Lee and Steve Miller. This is a book in their Liaden Universe series, which I love, and I have read the first books in this series like multiple times. I just love the world. I love the characters. They're very much space opera type books. And so I have the second book in this sort of duology within the bigger series. The next one is called Dragon Ship. And I read this book back in 2019, and so I wanted to reread it, and so then I can go on to Dragon Ship, which I have already started. So yeah, this one follows the adventures of a spaceship pilot called Thea Whatley, who is discovering her family heritage. She is connected to the main characters from the previous books in the series. And a spaceship, the ghost ship that's referred to in the title, believes that Theo is her rightful pilot and wants to bond with her. The ship has full intelligence, is a sentient being on its own, and has old tech and new tech, and is quite accomplished in what it can do. But it's following Theo around the universe, trying to get her to accept being the captain of the ship. The pilot of the ship, excuse me. So that's what this book is about, and the Dragon Ship is the follow-up to that. So very much fun. If you have not yet tried Sharon Lee and Steve Miller's writing, and you really like space opera type science fiction, I can highly recommend. They are a husband and wife writing team from Maine, and this series is just fantastic. So that's what I've read that I haven't yet talked about on the channel. Thanks again to all of you for being here with me now that I've reached over 3,000 subscribers. Please do leave your questions down in the comment section below, and we'll have a fun Q&A session in an upcoming video. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you're doing well and finding some great books to read. I will talk to you later.